What if I told you that the most powerful man in the ancient world, a Roman emperor who controlled the lives of 65 million people, woke up every single morning feeling exactly like you do right now, anxious about the day ahead, overwhelmed by responsibilities, questioning whether he was good enough for the challenges he faced? But Marcus Aurelius discovered 5 simple daily habits that didn't just change his life. They transformed him into one of history's greatest leaders and philosophers. And in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share these exact habits with you, along with how I've personally implemented them to completely revolutionize my own daily experience. By the end of this video, you'll have a practical framework that you can start using tomorrow morning to build the same mental strength that guided an emperor through plagues, wars, and the weight of an entire civilization. Picture this. It's 161 AD. You've just inherited the most powerful position on earth, Emperor of Rome. But instead of celebration, you're facing a nightmare. A devastating plague is sweeping across your empire, killing millions. Barbarian tribes are attacking your borders. Your own generals are plotting against you. And every single day, you have to make decisions that will determine whether civilization itself survives or crumbles. This was Marcus Aurelius's reality for 19 years. And here's what's remarkable. He didn't just survive this pressure, he thrived under it. While other emperors before him had gone mad with power or crumbled under stress, Marcus developed a daily practice that kept him centered, wise, and effective even in the darkest moments. The secret wasn't some mystical philosophy or inherited genius. It was 5 specific habits that he practiced every single day. Habits so powerful that his private journal, which we now call Meditations, has influenced leaders, entrepreneurs, and anyone seeking inner strength for over 1,800 years. But here's what most people miss about Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't born stoic. His personal writings reveal a man who struggled with anger, anxiety, and self-doubt just like we do. The difference is that he developed a system to transform these struggles into strength. The 5 daily habits. Habit 1. The morning reflection. The first habit that changed everything for Marcus Aurelius was what I call the morning reflection. But this wasn't positive thinking or empty affirmations. This was something far more powerful. Every morning, before he even got out of bed, Marcus would spend 10 minutes preparing his mind for the day ahead. But not in the way you might think. Instead of visualizing success, he would actually imagine everything that could go wrong. He would think, "Today I will meet people who are angry, ungrateful, and difficult. They will try to frustrate me, manipulate me, and waste my time. I will face problems I didn't expect and challenges I don't feel ready for." Now, this might sound negative, but here's the genius. By mentally rehearsing difficulties before they happened, Marcus was never caught off guard. When someone actually was rude to him, instead of reacting with anger, he would think, here's exactly what I prepared for this morning. I started practicing this habit 6 months ago, and it's been a game changer. Every morning, I spend 10 minutes imagining the difficult conversations I might have, the technical problems that could arise, the moments when I might feel overwhelmed. And you know what happened? I stopped being reactive. I started responding to challenges with calm curiosity instead of stress and frustration. The key is not to dwell on these scenarios, but to mentally rehearse your ideal response. Marcus would remind himself, "When I encounter difficult people today, I will remember that they are acting from their own understanding. I will not let their behavior control my inner state." Try this tomorrow morning. Before you check your phone or get out of bed, spend 10 minutes imagining 3 challenges you might face today. Then, for each challenge, visualize yourself responding with patience, wisdom, and strength. You'll be amazed at how this simple practice transforms your entire day. Habit 2. The evening review. The second habit was Marcus's evening review, and this is where the real transformation happened. Every night, without exception, Marcus would examine his day like a scientist studying data. But he wasn't just reflecting randomly. He had a specific framework that I've adapted for modern life. First, he would ask, "What did I do well today?" Not to boost his ego, but to identify patterns of effective behavior he could repeat. Second, where did I fall short of my values? This wasn't self-criticism, it was honest assessment. Marcus would write things like, "I became impatient with my advisor today when he interrupted me. This served no purpose and created unnecessary tension." Third, what did I learn about myself or others? Marcus was constantly studying human nature, including his own reactions and motivations. Fourth, how can I improve tomorrow? This wasn't vague goal setting, but specific, actionable insights. When I started doing this evening review, I discovered something shocking. I was making the same mistakes over and over again without even realizing it. I was getting frustrated by the same types of situations, reacting poorly to the same kinds of people, and falling into the same unproductive patterns. But once I started tracking these patterns, everything changed. I began to see my reactions before they happened. I started catching myself in the moment and choosing better responses. Here's how you can implement this tonight. Set a reminder for 30 minutes before bed. Spend just 10 minutes writing down your answers to those 4 questions. Don't judge yourself harshly. Approach it with the curiosity of a scientist studying fascinating data. Marcus wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." This evening practice is how you become that headland, unshakable in the face of life's storms. Habit 3. The discipline of perception. The third habit is what Marcus called the discipline of perception, and it's probably the most powerful mental tool I've ever learned. Marcus realized that we don't react to events themselves. We react to our judgments about events. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you get angry. But it's not the action that made you angry. It's your judgment that they were rude or disrespectful. Marcus developed a practice of separating facts from interpretations. When something happened, he would first describe it in purely objective terms, then examine what story he was adding to those facts. For example, instead of thinking, "My colleague is trying to undermine me," Marcus would think, "My colleague disagreed with my proposal in the meeting. That is the fact. The story that he's trying to undermine me is my interpretation, and I can choose a different interpretation." This habit literally rewired my brain. I used to take everything personally. If someone didn't respond to my email quickly, I'd assume they were ignoring me. If a project got delayed, I'd assume it was because I wasn't good enough. These interpretations were creating constant stress and anxiety. Now, when something happens, I pause and ask, what are the facts here? What story am I adding to these facts? Is there a more empowering way to interpret this situation? Last month, I didn't get a promotion I was hoping for. My initial reaction was to think, they don't value my work. I'm not good enough. I should start looking for another job. But then I applied Marcus's discipline of perception, the facts. I didn't get the promotion. The story I was adding, that this meant I wasn't valued or good enough. A better interpretation. This is feedback about specific skills I can develop, and it's an opportunity to have a conversation about my growth path. This shift in perception completely changed my response. Instead of feeling defeated, I scheduled a meeting with my manager to understand exactly what I needed to improve. That conversation led to a development plan that's actually accelerating my career growth. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind. not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is that power in action. Here's your practice. For the next week, whenever you feel a strong emotional reaction to something, pause and ask, what are the facts? What story am I adding? How else could I interpret this? You'll be shocked at how much control you actually have over your emotional experience. Habit 4. The practice of negative visualization. The fourth habit sounds counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful. Negative visualization. Marcus would regularly imagine losing the things he valued most: his health, his position, his loved ones. This wasn't morbid thinking or pessimism. It was a practice designed to cultivate gratitude and reduce attachment to things outside his control. Marcus would think, what if I lost my position as emperor tomorrow? What if this plague takes my life? What if the people I love were no longer with me? By regularly contemplating these possibilities, he accomplished two things. First, he never took his blessings for granted. Every day with his family felt precious because he had imagined what life would be like without them. Second, he reduced his anxiety about loss. When you've mentally rehearsed losing something, you're less afraid of that loss, which means you can enjoy what you have without the constant fear of losing it. I was initially resistant to this practice because it seemed depressing, but when I tried it, something remarkable happened. Instead of making me sad, it made me incredibly grateful. I started imagining what my life would be like if I lost my health, my relationships, my career. And suddenly, my morning coffee tasted better. Conversations with friends felt more meaningful. Even mundane moments became precious. But here's the deeper benefit. This practice also prepared me for actual loss. When my grandfather passed away last year, I was devastated, but I wasn't paralyzed. I had already contemplated the reality that everyone I love will eventually be gone, so I was able to grieve fully while still functioning. Marcus wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. By accepting the impermanence of everything, we can love more deeply and live more fully." The practice is simple. Once a week, spend 10 minutes imagining losing something you value. Don't dwell on the sadness. Focus on how precious that thing is right now. Notice how this changes your appreciation for what you have. Habit 5. The view from above. The fifth and final habit was what Marcus called the view from above. When he felt overwhelmed by immediate problems, he would mentally zoom out and see his situation from a cosmic perspective. He would imagine himself from space, seeing the entire Roman Empire as just a small part of the Earth. Then he would zoom out further, seeing Earth as a tiny dot in the universe. From this perspective, his daily frustrations seemed much less significant. But this wasn't about minimizing his problems. It was about right-sizing them. Some problems really are worth your full attention and energy. Others are just noise that distracts you from what actually matters. Marcus would write, "Remember that in a little while, you and everyone you know will be dead, and soon after that, even your name will be forgotten." This sounds depressing, but it's actually liberating. It means you can stop worrying about what people think and focus on what truly matters. I use this practice whenever I'm stressed about something that feels overwhelming. Last week, I was anxious about a presentation I had to give. I was worried about every possible thing that could go wrong, imagining worst-case scenarios where I embarrassed myself. Then I practiced the view from above. I imagined myself from space, seeing this presentation as one tiny moment in one tiny life on one tiny planet. I realized that in 100 years, no one would remember this presentation. In 1,000 years, no one would remember me at all. This didn't make me careless about the presentation. It freed me to focus on what actually mattered, delivering value to the audience instead of protecting my ego. The view from above helps you distinguish between what's truly important and what's just ego or anxiety. It gives you permission to care deeply about the things that matter and let go of the things that don't. Here's how to practice it. When you're feeling overwhelmed, close your eyes and imagine zooming out from your current location. See yourself from above, then your building, then your city, then your country, then Earth, then the solar system. From this perspective, ask yourself, how much will this matter in 10 years? What would I focus on if I only had 1 year to live? Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but how do I actually implement these habits in my crazy modern life? I get it. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. He had people to handle his emails and social media notifications. But here's what I've learned from practicing these habits for the past year. They're not just compatible with modern life, they're essential for it. We're dealing with more information, more decisions, and more distractions than any human in history. We need these practices more than Marcus ever did. Here's my modern implementation system. Morning reflection, 5 to 10 minutes. I do this before I check my phone. I sit on the edge of my bed and mentally rehearse 3 challenges I might face today. I visualize myself responding with patience and wisdom. Evening review, 10 minutes. I have a reminder set for 9 p.m. I use a simple journal with 4 questions. What went well? Where did I fall short? What did I learn? How can I improve tomorrow? Discipline of perception throughout the day. Whenever I feel a strong emotional reaction, I pause and ask, facts or story? This has become automatic after months of practice. Negative visualization, weekly. Every Sunday morning, I spend 10 minutes imagining losing something I value. This keeps me grateful and reduces my attachment to outcomes. View from above, as needed. When I'm stressed, I take 2 minutes to zoom out and see my situation from a cosmic perspective. The key is to start small. Don't try to implement all 5 habits at once. Pick one that resonates with you and practice it for 2 weeks until it becomes automatic. Then add another. I started with just the evening review, and it was so transformative that I naturally wanted to add the other practices. Here's what changed for me. I stopped being reactive to other people's moods. I became more grateful for ordinary moments. I started making decisions based on my values instead of my fears. I developed genuine confidence that comes from knowing I can handle whatever life throws at me. These aren't just ancient philosophical concepts. They're practical tools for building mental resilience in a chaotic world. Let me address the 3 biggest obstacles people face when trying to implement these habits. Obstacle 1. I don't have time. Marcus was running an empire during a plague and multiple wars. If he had time for these practices, you do too. Start with just 5 minutes of evening review. That's less time than you spend scrolling social media. Obstacle 2. This feels too negative. I thought the same thing initially. But these practices aren't about being pessimistic. They're about being realistic. By preparing for challenges and accepting impermanence, you actually become more positive because you're not constantly fighting reality. Obstacle 3. I forget to do it. Use technology to support ancient wisdom. Set phone reminders. Put your journal next to your bed. Create environmental cues that make these practices automatic. Remember, Marcus Aurelius wasn't trying to become a perfect person. He was trying to become a better person, one day at a time. These habits aren't about achieving some impossible standard. They're about making steady progress toward the person you want to become. The most important thing is consistency, not perfection. If you miss a day, just start again the next day. Marcus himself wrote about struggling with these practices and having to constantly remind himself to return to them. Here's my challenge for you. Choose one of these 5 habits and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. Don't try to be perfect, just be consistent. If you found value in this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me reach more people who are seeking practical wisdom for modern life. And if you implement one of these habits, leave a comment below sharing your experience. I read every comment and often feature the best insights in future videos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." I would add, the best response to a chaotic world is not to become chaotic yourself, but to develop the inner strength that no external circumstance can shake. These 5 habits gave a Roman emperor the power to lead with wisdom during the darkest times in history. They can give you the power to thrive in whatever challenges you're facing today. Your future self is counting on the choices you make right now. Start tomorrow morning with the first habit and begin building the mental strength that will serve you for the rest of your life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore Carl Jung's revolutionary insights about the shadow side of your personality and why embracing your darkness might be the key to finding your light. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about being a good person is actually keeping you weak, unfulfilled, and secretly miserable? What if the parts of yourself you're most ashamed of, your anger, your selfishness, your dark thoughts, are actually the keys to becoming whole, powerful, and genuinely confident? Carl Jung, the revolutionary psychiatrist who influenced everyone from Einstein to the creators of Star Wars, discovered something that will completely change how you see yourself. He found that your shadow, all those traits you hide and deny, isn't your enemy. It's your greatest untapped source of energy, creativity, and authentic power. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you Jung's shadow work process that transformed my own life and the lives of thousands of my viewers. You'll discover why embracing your darkness is the only path to genuine light. And I'll give you a practical framework you can start using tonight to befriend the most powerful parts of yourself. Picture this. It's 1907, and a young psychiatrist named Carl Jung is working with patients in a Swiss mental hospital. He's watching people who seem perfectly normal on the surface, yet they're tormented by depression, anxiety, and a deep sense that something is fundamentally wrong with their lives. But Jung noticed something that his mentor Freud missed. These patients weren't sick because of what they were doing. They were sick because of what they were not doing. They were suffering because they had rejected, buried, and denied essential parts of themselves. Jung realized that every human being has what he called a shadow, a collection of all the traits, impulses, and aspects of personality that we've been taught are unacceptable. Your anger when someone disrespects you, your desire for recognition and power, your sexual thoughts, your selfishness, your capacity for manipulation, your dark humor, your rebellious streak. Most people spend their entire lives running from these aspects of themselves, trying to be good and acceptable. But Jung discovered something revolutionary. The energy you spend suppressing your shadow is the same energy you need for creativity, passion, leadership, and authentic confidence. Here's what's really happening when you deny your shadow. You're not actually getting rid of these traits. You're just making them unconscious. And when they're unconscious, they control you in ways you don't even realize. Let me show you how shadow denial is secretly destroying your life, even if you think you're a good person. First, it creates what Jung called projection. When you can't accept your own capacity for anger, you become hypersensitive to anger in others. When you deny your own selfishness, you constantly judge others for being selfish. You literally see your own rejected traits everywhere around you, creating conflict and drama that doesn't need to exist. I used to pride myself on being a nice guy. I never got angry, never stood up for myself, always put others first. But I was constantly frustrated with selfish people around me. I couldn't understand why everyone else seemed so self-centered. It took me years to realize that I was projecting my own denied selfishness onto everyone else. The very trait I couldn't accept in myself was what I was constantly fighting in the world. Second, shadow denial creates what Jung called compensation. When you suppress one aspect of your personality, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground and expresses itself in distorted ways. The person who prides themselves on never being angry often becomes passive-aggressive. The person who denies their sexuality becomes either repressed or secretly obsessed. The person who rejects their power drive becomes manipulative in subtle ways. Third, and this is the big one, shadow denial robs you of your life force. Think about it. If you're spending enormous amounts of energy suppressing parts of yourself, that's energy you can't use for creating, loving, achieving, or enjoying life. You become what Jung called half a person, living only from your acceptable traits while your shadow traits drain your energy from the unconscious. I see this everywhere. People who are exhausted from being nice all the time. People who feel empty despite doing everything right. People who have successful lives on paper, but feel like they're living someone else's life. This is the cost of shadow denial. But here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. When you learn to consciously integrate your shadow, you don't become a worse person. You become a complete person. You gain access to energy, creativity, and authentic power that you never knew you had. Now I'm going to teach you Jung's actual process for shadow integration. This isn't about becoming evil or acting out your dark impulses. This is about becoming conscious of them so they can serve you instead of sabotaging you. Step 1. Shadow recognition. The first step is learning to recognize your shadow. Jung said the shadow appears in 3 main ways: your triggers and judgments. Pay attention to what bothers you most about other people. The traits that make you angry, disgusted, or judgmental are often your own shadow traits that you can't accept. If someone's arrogance really gets under your skin, there's probably a part of you that wants to be more confident and assertive, but you've labeled it as arrogance. Your slips and mistakes. Notice when you act in ways that surprise you. When you say something sarcastic when you're usually nice. When you feel jealous when you pride yourself on being supportive. When you have a power fantasy when you usually think of yourself as humble. These aren't character flaws. They're shadow traits trying to surface. Your fascinations and attractions. What kind of people do you find mysteriously attractive, even if you wouldn't want to be like them? What characters in movies or books do you find compelling? Often, we're drawn to people who express our own shadow traits freely. Step 2. Shadow dialogue. Once you've identified a shadow trait, the next step is to have a conversation with it. This sounds weird, but it's incredibly powerful. Jung called this active imagination. Here's how it works. Instead of trying to get rid of the shadow trait, you acknowledge it and ask what it wants. If you've identified anger as a shadow trait, you don't try to eliminate your anger. You ask your anger, what are you trying to protect? What boundary has been crossed? What do you need me to understand? When I first did this with my own anger, I was shocked by what I discovered. My anger wasn't destructive. It was trying to protect my values and my self-respect. It was showing me where I was allowing people to treat me poorly. Once I understood this, I could use my anger as information rather than suppressing it or exploding. Step 3. Shadow integration. The final step is integration, finding healthy ways to express your shadow traits. This doesn't mean acting out every dark impulse. It means finding constructive channels for shadow energy. If your shadow trait is selfishness, integration might mean learning to prioritize your own needs and set boundaries. If your shadow trait is aggression, integration might mean becoming more assertive in your career or standing up for your values. If your shadow trait is sexuality, integration might mean embracing your sensual nature in healthy relationships. The key is that integration transforms shadow traits from unconscious compulsions into conscious choices. Instead of your anger controlling you, you can choose when and how to use your anger. Instead of your power drive manipulating you unconsciously, you can consciously pursue leadership and influence. Let me give you some concrete examples of how shadow integration works in real life. Example 1. The people pleaser's shadow. Sarah came to me because she was exhausted from always saying yes to everyone. She prided herself on being helpful and kind, but she was burning out. When we explored her shadow, we discovered a strong, selfish part that she had completely denied. Instead of trying to eliminate this selfishness, we worked on integrating it. Sarah learned to ask herself, what do I actually want in this situation? She started setting boundaries, saying no to requests that drained her, and prioritizing her own goals. The result? She didn't become selfish. She became balanced. She could choose when to help others from a place of genuine desire rather than compulsion. Example 2. The nice guy's shadow. Mark was frustrated because he was always the friend, but never the romantic partner. He was kind, supportive, and respectful, but women weren't attracted to him. When we explored his shadow, we found a powerful, confident, even slightly dangerous part that he had completely suppressed because he thought it was toxic masculinity. Through shadow work, Mark learned to integrate his assertiveness and edge. He started expressing his opinions more directly, taking up more space in conversations, and showing his competitive side. He didn't become an aggressive jerk. He became an attractive man who was both kind and powerful. Example 3. The perfectionist's shadow. Lisa was a high achiever who was paralyzed by perfectionism. She couldn't start projects because she was afraid they wouldn't be perfect. When we explored her shadow, we discovered a rebellious, chaotic part that just wanted to create freely without judgment. Lisa learned to integrate this shadow by giving herself permission to make bad art, to experiment, to fail. She started a creative project where the goal was specifically to make something imperfect every day. This didn't make her sloppy. It made her productive. She could access her perfectionist drive when it served her and her rebellious creativity when she needed to innovate. The pattern you need to see. In every case, shadow integration didn't make these people worse. It made them more complete, more powerful, and more authentically themselves. They gained access to energy and capabilities they never knew they had. Now I need to address something that most people get wrong about shadow work. There's a dangerous trend in self-help culture that only focuses on positive traits: love, light, gratitude, kindness. But Jung warned us about this. He called it spiritual bypassing, using spirituality to avoid dealing with difficult aspects of reality. Here's the truth that might make you uncomfortable. People who only cultivate positive traits often become weak, naive, and ineffective in the real world. They become what Jung called too good for this world, so focused on being pure that they can't handle conflict, competition, or the darker aspects of human nature. I've seen this countless times. The person who's so focused on love and light that they can't protect themselves from manipulation. The person who's so committed to being positive that they can't acknowledge real problems in their relationships or career. The person who's so afraid of their own darkness that they become powerless against the darkness in others. Jung understood something that modern self-help often misses. You need your shadow to be effective in the world. You need your capacity for anger to set boundaries. You need your competitive drive to achieve your goals. You need your skepticism to avoid being taken advantage of. You need your selfishness to take care of yourself. The goal isn't to become a saint. It's to become a complete human being who can access all aspects of their personality when appropriate. The integration paradox. Here's the paradox that Jung discovered. The more you accept your capacity for darkness, the less likely you are to act it out destructively. When you deny your shadow, it controls you unconsciously. When you accept it, you can choose how to express it consciously. The person who accepts their capacity for anger is less likely to explode in rage because they can address issues before they build up. The person who accepts their competitive nature is less likely to sabotage others because they can compete directly and fairly. The person who accepts their sexuality is less likely to act out inappropriately because they can express it in healthy ways. This is why Jung said that making the unconscious conscious is the path to freedom. When you know all parts of yourself, you can choose which parts to express in any given situation. Now I'm going to give you a practical shadow work exercise you can start tonight. This is based directly on Jung's active imagination technique, adapted for modern life. The shadow dialogue exercise. 1. Identify a trigger. Think of someone who really bothers you. Someone whose behavior makes you angry, disgusted, or judgmental. Write down specifically what bothers you about them. 2. Find the shadow trait. Ask yourself, what if this trait exists in me too? What would that look like? Don't judge it, just explore it. If their arrogance bothers you, what would your arrogance look like? If their selfishness bothers you, what would your selfishness look like? 3. Have a conversation. Imagine this shadow trait as a separate part of yourself. Ask it, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve? What do you need me to understand? Write down whatever comes up, even if it seems strange. 4. Find the gift. Every shadow trait has a gift hidden inside it. Arrogance might contain confidence. Selfishness might contain self-care. Anger might contain boundary setting. Ask your shadow trait, what gift are you trying to give me? 5. Plan integration. Ask yourself, how can I express this trait in a healthy, constructive way? If the gift is confidence, how can you be more confident in your daily life? If the gift is self-care, how can you prioritize your needs better? The weekly shadow check-in. Every week, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. What triggered me this week? And what does that reveal about my shadow? 2. What part of myself did I suppress or deny this week? 3. How can I integrate this shadow aspect in a healthy way next week? Warning: start small. Shadow work is powerful, but it can be intense. Start with small shadow traits, not major ones. Work with mild irritations before you tackle deep traumas. If you find yourself overwhelmed, consider working with a therapist who understands Jungian psychology. Here's what I want you to understand. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your untapped potential. Every trait you've rejected, every impulse you've suppressed, every aspect of yourself you've denied contains energy that could be serving your highest goals. The people who change the world aren't the ones who've eliminated their darkness. They're the ones who've learned to harness it. Steve Jobs was famously difficult and demanding, but that shadow trait drove him to create revolutionary products. Oprah has talked openly about her capacity for ruthlessness, and that trait helped her build a media empire. Gandhi was known for his fierce anger at injustice, and that shadow trait fueled his fight for independence. Your shadow contains your power, your creativity, your passion, your ability to stand up for yourself and others, your capacity to achieve great things and make a real difference in the world. But you can only access this power by making friends with your darkness. If this video has opened your eyes to the power of shadow work, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me reach more people who are ready to do the deep work of becoming whole. And leave a comment below sharing one shadow trait you're ready to explore. I read every comment and often feature the most insightful ones in future videos. Next week, we're diving into Viktor Frankl's revolutionary discovery about finding meaning in the darkest moments of life. You'll learn why your suffering might be the key to your purpose, and I'll share the 3-step process Frankl used to transform the worst experiences into the greatest sources of meaning. Remember, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're not too dark. You're a complete human being with both light and shadow, and both are necessary for you to become who you're truly meant to be. The question isn't whether you have a shadow. You do. The question is whether you'll make friends with it or spend your life running from your own power. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we explore how meaning can emerge from the darkest moments of human experience. What if I told you that a man who lost everything, his family, his freedom, his life's work, discovered the most powerful secret for finding meaning that has transformed millions of lives? What if the darkest chapter in human history revealed the brightest truth about human potential? Viktor Frankl survived 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He watched his parents, brother, and pregnant wife die. He lost his manuscript containing his life's work. Yet in that hell on earth, he discovered something that not only saved his life, but became the foundation for a revolutionary approach to psychology that has helped millions find meaning in their darkest moments. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share Frankl's 3-part framework for finding meaning in any situation, no matter how hopeless it seems. You'll discover why your current struggles might be the key to your greatest purpose, and I'll give you the exact tools Frankl used to transform suffering into significance. Picture this. It's 1942, and you're a successful psychiatrist in Vienna. You've just completed a manuscript that could revolutionize psychology. You're married to the love of your life, and she's pregnant with your first child. You have a thriving practice, a loving family, and a bright future ahead of you. Then, in one night, everything is ripped away. You're arrested by the Nazis, separated from your wife, and thrown into a cattle car with hundreds of other Jews. Your manuscript is confiscated and destroyed. You don't know if you'll ever see your family again. You don't know if you'll survive the next day. This was Viktor Frankl's reality. But what happened next would challenge everything we think we know about human resilience, meaning, and the power of choice. Most people in the concentration camps died not just from the physical horrors, but from what Frankl called spiritual death, the loss of hope, purpose, and meaning. They gave up before their bodies gave out. But Frankl noticed something remarkable. Some prisoners, despite facing identical conditions, not only survived, but maintained their humanity, dignity, and even found ways to help others. What was the difference? It wasn't physical strength, intelligence, or luck. It was something far more profound, something that Frankl would later call the will to meaning. These survivors had discovered what he would spend the rest of his life teaching: that we cannot always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose what it means to us. Frankl realized that the concentration camp was the ultimate laboratory for understanding human nature. Stripped of everything external possessions, status, comfort, even basic human dignity, what remained? What could sustain a human being when everything else was gone? His answer would revolutionize psychology and give birth to what he called logotherapy, literally therapy through meaning. But this wasn't just academic theory. This was wisdom forged in the fires of the worst suffering imaginable. Through his observations in the camps and his work with thousands of patients afterward, Frankl discovered that meaning comes from three primary sources. Understanding these sources can transform how you approach every challenge in your life. 1. Creative values. What you give to the world. The first source of meaning is what Frankl called creative values. What you contribute to the world through your work, deeds, and creations. This isn't just about having a job or career. It's about finding ways to express your unique gifts and make a positive impact. Even in the concentration camps, Frankl found meaning through creative values. He began reconstructing his destroyed manuscript in his mind, using scraps of paper to write down key insights. He gave lectures to fellow prisoners about psychology and philosophy. He helped others find reasons to keep living. But here's what most people miss about creative values. They don't have to be grand or world-changing. A mother finding meaning in raising her children with love and wisdom. A teacher inspiring one student to believe in themselves. A friend offering comfort during someone's darkest hour. These are all expressions of creative values. I see this constantly in my own life and the lives of people around me. The person who feels empty despite career success often hasn't connected their work to something meaningful beyond themselves. The retiree who feels lost has stopped creating value in the world. The student who feels directionless hasn't yet discovered how their unique gifts can serve others. The key insight is this: meaning doesn't come from what you get from the world, but from what you give to it. When you shift from asking, "What can life give me?" to "What can I give to life?" everything changes. 2. Experiential values. What you take from the world. The second source of meaning is experiential values that you receive from the world through encounters with truth, beauty, love, and human connection. This is about being fully present to the goodness that exists even in difficult circumstances. Frankl wrote about prisoners who found meaning in a beautiful sunset, viewed through barbed wire, in a piece of music hummed by a fellow prisoner, in a moment of deep connection with another human being. Even in hell, beauty and love could still touch the human soul. This completely changed how I approach daily life. We live in a culture obsessed with achieving and acquiring, but we often miss the profound meaning available in simply experiencing life fully. The taste of morning coffee, the feeling of sunlight on your skin, the look in your child's eyes when they laugh, the satisfaction of a deep conversation with a friend. But experiential values go deeper than simple pleasures. They're about recognizing the sacred in the ordinary, finding beauty in unexpected places, and allowing yourself to be moved by life's profound moments. I remember a conversation with a woman who was going through a devastating divorce. She felt like her life was falling apart and nothing had meaning anymore. But when we explored experiential values, she began to notice things she had been missing. The way her daughter's face lit up when she came home from school, the comfort of her morning walk in nature, the kindness of friends who supported her through the crisis. These experiences didn't eliminate her pain, but they provided threads of meaning that helped her weave a new sense of purpose. She realized that even in loss, life was still offering her gifts. She just had to be present enough to receive them. 3. Attitudinal values. How you face unavoidable suffering. The third and most powerful source of meaning is attitudinal values, the stance you take toward unavoidable suffering. This is where Frankl's insights become truly revolutionary. Frankl observed that when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The meaning of life is not found in avoiding suffering, but in how we choose to suffer. When we can transform our pain into purpose, our trials into triumphs, we access the deepest source of human meaning. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering or glorifying pain. It means recognizing that when suffering is unavoidable, and it will be for all of us, we can choose to let it destroy us or transform us. Frankl himself embodied this principle. He could have emerged from the concentration camps bitter, broken, and filled with hatred. Instead, he chose to transform his suffering into a gift for humanity. His experiences became the foundation for helping millions of people find meaning in their own struggles. I've seen this principle work in countless lives. The parent who loses a child and channels their grief into helping other grieving families. The person who overcomes addiction and becomes a counselor for others struggling with substance abuse. The survivor of trauma who becomes an advocate for others who have experienced similar pain. But attitudinal values don't require dramatic transformation. They can be as simple as choosing patience instead of anger when stuck in traffic, choosing gratitude instead of resentment when facing a setback, choosing compassion instead of judgment when dealing with difficult people. The key insight is this: you always have the freedom to choose your response to any situation. This freedom cannot be taken away by external circumstances, no matter how dire they may be. Now I want to give you Frankl's practical framework for finding meaning in any situation. This isn't just theory. This is a step-by-step process you can use right now, today, to transform how you experience whatever challenges you're facing. Step 1. Accept what is. The first step in finding meaning is radical acceptance of your current reality. This doesn't mean passive resignation or giving up hope for change. It means stopping the exhausting fight against what has already happened and redirecting that energy toward what you can actually control. Frankl learned this lesson in the most extreme way possible. He couldn't change the fact that he was in a concentration camp. He couldn't bring back his family or his manuscript. He couldn't control the guards or the conditions, but he could control his response to these realities. Most of our suffering comes not from our circumstances themselves, but from our resistance to our circumstances. We waste enormous amounts of energy fighting reality instead of working with it. We tell ourselves stories like, "This shouldn't be happening," "It's not fair," or "I can't handle this." But here's what Frankl discovered. When you fully accept what is, you free up all that energy to focus on what you can actually influence. Acceptance doesn't mean you like your situation or that you won't work to change it. It means you stop arguing with reality and start working from reality. I see this constantly in my own life and in working with others. The person going through a divorce who spends months fighting the fact that their marriage is over instead of focusing on how to move forward constructively. The entrepreneur whose business fails and who wastes energy on blame and regret instead of learning from the experience and planning their next venture. The practice is simple, but not easy. When you notice yourself resisting your current situation, pause and ask yourself, what am I fighting that I cannot change? How can I redirect this energy toward what I can influence? Step 2. Find the hidden gift. The second step is to look for what Frankl called the hidden gift in your situation. Every challenge, every setback, every form of suffering contains within it the seeds of growth, wisdom, or service to others. Your job is to find those seeds and nurture them. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending that bad things are actually good. It's about recognizing that even the most difficult experiences can become sources of strength, compassion, and wisdom if we approach them with the right attitude. Frankl found multiple hidden gifts in his concentration camp experience. It deepened his understanding of human psychology in ways that no textbook ever could. It gave him unshakable compassion for human suffering. It provided him with insights that would help millions of people. It proved to him that the human spirit is stronger than any external circumstance. But you don't need to experience extreme trauma to find hidden gifts. Every challenge in your life contains potential lessons and opportunities for growth. The job loss that forces you to discover new skills or pursue a more fulfilling career. The health crisis that teaches you to value what really matters. The relationship conflict that helps you develop better communication skills. The key is to ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? How might this experience be preparing me for something important? What strengths am I developing that I never knew I had? I remember working with a man who was devastated when he was laid off from a job he'd held for 15 years. Initially, he was consumed with anger and self-pity. But when we explored the hidden gifts, he realized that the job had become a comfortable prison. The layoff forced him to pursue entrepreneurial dreams he'd been putting off for years. 2 years later, he had built a successful consulting business and told me it was the best thing that ever happened to him. Step 3. Choose your response. The third step is the most crucial. Consciously choosing how you will respond to your situation. This is where you exercise what Frankl called the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose your attitude in any given circumstances. This choice happens in the space between stimulus and response. Something happens to you, stimulus, and before you react automatically, response. There's a moment, sometimes just a split second, where you can choose. In that moment lies your power and your freedom. Frankl practiced this constantly in the concentration camps. When a guard was cruel to him, he could choose to respond with hatred or with understanding. When he felt despair, he could choose to focus on his suffering or on his purpose. When he was tempted to give up, he could choose to remember why his survival mattered. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging your natural reactions while consciously choosing your response. You can feel angry and choose not to act on that anger destructively. You can feel sad and choose to let that sadness deepen your compassion. You can feel afraid and choose to act courageously despite the fear. The practice is to pause before reacting and ask yourself, given this situation, what response would be most aligned with my values and my long-term well-being? What response would I be proud of when I look back on this moment? This becomes easier with practice. Every time you choose your response consciously, instead of reacting automatically, you strengthen what Frankl called your spiritual muscle, your capacity to find meaning and maintain your humanity regardless of circumstances. Let me show you how to apply Frankl's framework to the most common challenges people face today. These aren't theoretical examples. These are real situations where meaning-making can transform your experience. Career dissatisfaction and purpose. Sarah came to me feeling completely lost in her corporate job. She was successful by external measures, but felt empty and meaningless inside. Using Frankl's framework, we worked through her situation. Accept what is. Sarah stopped fighting the fact that she was currently in a job she didn't love and accepted that career transitions take time and planning. Find the hidden gift. She realized her corporate experience was teaching her valuable skills in project management and team leadership that would serve her in any future role. She also discovered that her dissatisfaction was actually her soul calling her toward more meaningful work. Choose your response. Instead of just complaining or quitting impulsively, Sarah chose to use her current position as a laboratory for developing the skills she'd need in her dream career. She started volunteering for projects that aligned with her values and began building relationships with people in fields that interested her. Within 18 months, Sarah had transitioned to a nonprofit organization where she felt deeply aligned with the mission. But more importantly, she had learned that meaning isn't something you find out there. It's something you create through your choices and attitudes. Relationship conflicts and communication. Mark was struggling with constant conflicts with his teenage son. Every conversation seemed to end in arguments, and he felt like he was failing as a father. Here's how Frankl's framework transformed their relationship. Accept what is. Mark stopped trying to control his son's behavior and accepted that teenagers naturally push boundaries as part of their development. Find the hidden gift. He realized that these conflicts were opportunities to model emotional regulation and to understand his son's perspective better. The challenges were also teaching him patience and forcing him to examine his own communication patterns. Choose your response. Instead of reacting with anger when his son was disrespectful, Mark chose to respond with curiosity. He started asking questions like, "Help me understand what you're feeling," instead of immediately correcting or lecturing. The transformation was remarkable. When Mark stopped trying to win arguments and started trying to understand his son, their relationship deepened significantly. The conflicts didn't disappear, but they became opportunities for connection rather than sources of division. Health challenges and physical limitations. Lisa was diagnosed with a chronic illness that forced her to give up many activities she loved. Initially, she was consumed with grief and anger about what she had lost. Frankl's framework helped her find a new sense of purpose. Accept what is. Lisa stopped fighting her diagnosis and accepted that her life would be different from what she had planned. Find the hidden gift. She discovered that her illness had given her profound empathy for others facing health challenges. It also forced her to slow down and appreciate simple pleasures she had previously overlooked. Choose your response. Lisa chose to become an advocate for others with her condition. She started a support group and began writing about her experience to help others navigate similar challenges. Lisa's illness didn't become a blessing. It remained a genuine loss and ongoing challenge. But by finding meaning in her experience, she transformed it from a source of pure suffering into a source of purpose and connection. Financial stress and economic uncertainty. David lost his business during an economic downturn and faced potential bankruptcy. The financial stress was affecting his marriage and his mental health. Here's how meaning-making changed his experience. Accept what is. David stopped denying the severity of his financial situation and accepted that he would need to rebuild from almost nothing. Find the hidden gift. He realized that losing his business had freed him from a lifestyle that was actually making him miserable. The crisis also brought him and his wife closer together as they faced the challenge as a team. Choose your response. Instead of wallowing in shame or blame, David chose to see this as an opportunity to create a more sustainable and fulfilling life. He simplified his lifestyle, strengthened his relationships, and eventually started a smaller business that was more aligned with his values. David's financial recovery took several years, but his psychological recovery happened much faster because he had found meaning in the experience. Now I need to share with you the most profound insight from Frankl's work, something that might challenge everything you've been taught about happiness and success. Our culture teaches us that the goal of life is to avoid suffering and maximize pleasure. We're told that if we just work hard enough, make enough money, find the right relationship, or achieve the right goals, we can create a life free from pain and full of happiness. But Frankl discovered something revolutionary. The people who are most fulfilled and resilient aren't those who have avoided suffering, but those who have found meaning in their suffering. The goal isn't to eliminate pain from your life, it's to ensure that your pain has purpose. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering or believing that pain is inherently good. It means recognizing that suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience, and when it comes, we have the power to transform it into something meaningful. Think about the people you most admire. Chances are, they're not people who have lived easy, pain-free lives. They're people who have faced significant challenges and used those challenges to develop wisdom, compassion, and strength that they then share with others. The parent who loses a child and starts a foundation to help other grieving families. The person who overcomes addiction and becomes a counselor. The survivor of abuse who becomes an advocate for others. The entrepreneur who fails multiple times before building something meaningful. These people haven't avoided suffering, they've transformed it. But here's the key insight. You don't have to wait for major trauma to apply this principle. Every day brings small opportunities to choose meaning over misery, purpose over self-pity, growth over stagnation. The traffic jam that teaches you patience. The difficult coworker who helps you develop emotional intelligence. The financial setback that forces you to clarify your priorities. The health scare that reminds you what really matters. The relationship conflict that deepens your capacity for love and understanding. Frankl called this tragic optimism, the ability to maintain hope and find meaning despite the inevitable tragedies of human existence. It's not naive positivity that denies reality. It's mature wisdom that faces reality fully and still chooses to create meaning from whatever life brings. This is perhaps the most countercultural message you'll ever hear. Your problems are not obstacles to a meaningful life. They are the raw material from which a meaningful life is built. Your struggles are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are opportunities to discover what you're truly capable of. The question isn't whether you will face difficulties. The question is whether you will allow those difficulties to destroy you or transform you. Will you let your pain make you bitter or better? Will you use your struggles as excuses or as fuel? Here's what I want you to understand. Viktor Frankl's secret isn't really a secret at all. It's a choice that's available to you right now, in this moment, regardless of what you're facing. You have the power to find meaning in any situation. Not because your circumstances will magically become easier, but because you can choose what those circumstances mean to you. You can choose how you respond. You can choose what you learn. You can choose how you grow. Your current struggles contain within them the seeds of your greatest contributions to the world. Your pain can become your purpose. Your trials can become your triumphs. Your wounds can become your wisdom, but only if you choose to make them so. If this video has opened your eyes to the power of meaning-making, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me reach more people who need to hear this message. And leave a comment below sharing one way you're going to apply Frankl's framework to a current challenge in your life. I read every comment and often feature the most insightful responses in future videos. Next week, we're exploring how to integrate all the wisdom we've covered from Marcus Aurelius, Carl Jung, and Viktor Frankl into a comprehensive philosophy for modern living. You'll discover how these three revolutionary thinkers can work together to help you build an unshakable foundation for meaning, purpose, and resilience. Remember, you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the author of your response to your circumstances. And in that response lies your freedom, your power, and your capacity to create a life of profound meaning. Viktor Frankl survived the worst that humanity can inflict and emerged with a gift for all of us. The knowledge that no matter what happens to you, you always retain the power to choose what it means. That choice is your birthright, your responsibility, and your greatest opportunity. The question isn't what life will bring you. The question is what you will make of what life brings you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we put it all together and create your personal philosophy for thriving in the modern world.